Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to day 51 of our Bhakti Vaibhava seminar on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. So we are today beginning chapter 18 of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So here we go. First of all, let us chant our prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadeshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyas cha kripa sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Right, so day 51, and we are beginning chapter 18, and actually we'll try and complete it today if we can. Chapter 18 is titled The Battle Between Lord Boar and the Demon Hiranyaksha, and there are 28 verses, so it's really quite short. Quite a short chapter, 4 sections. First section is from verse 1 to verse 8, and we call that Hiranyaksha demands a fight with Lord Varaha. Verse 1 to verse 8, Hiranyaksha demands a fight with Lord Varaha. Then second section, verse 9 to verse 12, Lord Varaha responds to Hiranyaksha. It's the second section, verse 9 to verse 12, Lord Varaha responds to Hiranyaksha. Third section, verse 13 to verse 19, fight between Varaha and Hiranyaksha. Then fourth section is from verse 20 to verse 28. Brahma appeals to Lord Varaha to kill Hiranyaksha quickly. Verse 20 to verse 28. Brahma appeals to Lord Varaha to kill Hiranyaksha quickly. Right, okay, let us get into it. First section, verse 1 to verse 8. Hiranyaksha demands a fight with Lord Varaha. Right, yes, so we will, we'll read through the verses first. Verse 1, Maitreya continued, the proud and falsely glorious Daitya paid little heed to the words of Varuna. O dear Vidura, he learned from Narada the whereabouts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and hurriedly betook himself to the depths of the ocean. Verse 2, he saw there the all-powerful personality of Godhead in his boar incarnation, bearing the earth upward on the ends of his tusks, and robbing him of his splendor with his reddish eyes. The demon laughed, "Oh, an amphibious beast." Verse 3. The demon addressed the Lord, O best of the demigods, dressed in the form of a boar, just hear me. This earth is entrusted to us, the inhabitants of the lower regions, and you cannot take it from my presence and not be hurt by me. Verse 4, You rascal, you have been nourished by our enemies to kill us, and you have killed some demons by remaining invisible. O fool, your power is only mystic, so today I shall enliven my kinsmen by killing you. Verse 5, the demon continued, When you fall dead, with your skull smashed by the mace hurled by my arms, the demigods and sages who offer you oblations and sacrifice in devotional service will also automatically cease to exist, like trees without roots. 6. Although the Lord was pained by the shaft-like abusive words of the demon, he bore the pain. But seeing that the earth on the ends of his tusks was frightened, he rose out of the water just as an elephant emerges with its female companion when assailed by an alligator. Verse 7, the demon who had golden hair on his head and fearful tusks gave chase to the Lord while he was rising from the water, even as an alligator would chase an elephant. Roaring like thunder, he said, Are you not ashamed of running away before a challenging adversary? There is nothing reproachable for shameless creatures. 8. The Lord placed the earth within his sight on the surface of the water and transferred to her his own energy in the form of the ability to float on the water. While the enemy stood looking on, Brahma, the creator of the universe, extolled the Lord, and the other demigods rained flowers on him. Okay, so let's get into it. Hiranyaksha demands a fight with Lord Varaha, verse 1 to verse 8. Verse 1, Maitreya continued, The proud and falsely glorious Daitya paid little heed to the words of Varuna. O dear Vidura, he learned from Narada the whereabouts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and hurriedly betook himself to the depths of the ocean. Okay, so there's a short purport here. Srila Prabhupada begins by saying materialistic warmongers are not even afraid to fight with their mightiest enemy, the personality of Godhead. So the demon, of course, we just read in the last session, he was happy to hear from Varuna that there was someone who could actually fight with him. So he was enthusiastic to meet the Lord, to fight with him, despite Varuna telling him that the Lord would make him food for dogs and jackals. Yes. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying that since demoniac persons are less intelligent, they dare to fight with Vishnu, who is Ajita, or one who has never been conquered. Verse 2, he saw there the all-powerful personality of Godhead in his boar incarnation, bearing the earth upward on the ends of his tusks, and robbing him of his splendor with his reddish eyes. The demon laughed. Oh, an amphibious beast. Amphibious means who sort of lives in the water. So, previously, Prabhupada makes the point that previously there has been a description we already read of Lord Varaha, and how he rescued the earth from the Garbhatak Ocean. So now the description here is that while he was doing that, this great demon Hiranyaksha met him and challenged him and called him a beast. That's really, anyway, Prabhupada goes on to say, demons can't understand the Lord's incarnations. They think his incarnations in animal forms, boar, fish, tortoise, etc. They're just animals, big animals only. So they deride his descent. And even in the Chaitanya Sampradaya, that's not our particular part, but those, there are many lines coming from Lord Chaitanya. Some of them think Lord Nityananda's body is material, like ours. Prabhupada calls it a demoniac misconception about the descent of Nityananda Prabhu. His body is completely transcendental. And this is an example of avajananti mam mudha. Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 verse 11. Persons who have no intelligence, they deride the transcendental form of the Lord as being material. Verse 3. The demon addressed the Lord, O best of the demigods, dressed in the form of a boar, just hear me. This earth is entrusted to us, the inhabitants of the lower regions, and you cannot take it from my presence and not be hurt by me. So, Sridhar Swami, great Bhagavatam commentator from approximately 1200 years ago, he says that while trying to deride the Lord, Hiranyaksha actually worshipped him by using certain particular words. So here they are. So first he addresses him as Vanagochara, which means one who is resident of the forest. But another meaning of Vanagochara is one who lies on the water, and that's Lord Vishnu. So the Supreme Lord can be properly addressed in this way. Then second is the demon also addressed him as Mriga, indicating unintentionally that the Supreme Lord is sought after by great sages, saintly persons, and transcendentalists. Then third was he addressed the Lord as Agya, and Sridhar Swami says that Gya means knowledge, and there's no knowledge which is unknown to the Supreme Lord. So indirectly, therefore, the demon said that Lord Varaha, or Lord Vishnu, knows everything. Then he addressed him as Suradama. Sura means the demigods, and Adama means Lord of all there is. So he's the Lord of all the demigods, therefore he's the best of all the demigods, or the Supreme Lord. Yes, but as far as he was concerned, he was addressing the Lord as lowest of the demigods. When he addressed him as Agya, if you look in the word for word there, you'll see he addresses him as Agya, which he takes to mean a fool, Agya, who doesn't know anything. So when the demon used the phrase, in my presence, the implied meaning was, in spite of my presence, you're completely able to take away the earth. And then finally, na swasti yasyasi means unless you kindly take this earth from our custody, there can be no good fortune for us. That's interesting, isn't it? Verse 4, you rascal, you have been nourished by our enemies to kill us, and you have killed some demons by remaining invisible. O fool, your power is only mystic, so today I shall enliven my kinsman by killing you. So there's a fairly substantial purport here. The demon used the word abhavaya, which means for killing. Sridhar Swami says that this actually means liberating. So, in other words, killing the process of birth and death. So as he does this, he keeps himself invisible. So, anyway, his internal potency is inconceivable, but just a slight exhibition of it can deliver one from nescience by his grace. Then Prabhupada says shucha means miseries. The miseries of material life are extinguished by the Lord through Yoga Maya. Yes, so these are words he's using to try to insult the Lord, but he's not actually succeeding in doing that. So the Lord is invisible, that's okay, but his energies act in various ways. So when demons are in adversity, then they think that God is hiding himself and is working by some mystical power, and they think that if they can find God, they'll kill him. Just by seeing him, Hiranyaksha thought like this. He accused the Lord of taking the side of the demigods and killing many of the demon community, always keeping himself hidden. So he said, now I see you face to face, and I'm not going to let you go. I shall kill you and save my kinsman from your mystic misdeeds. Then the second paragraph, not only do the demons think that they can kill God with words, with philosophy, but they think that if you're materially powerful, then you can kill God with material weapons. Therefore, demons like Kamsa, Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, they thought they were powerful enough themselves to kill God. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, demons cannot understand that God, by his multifarious potencies, can work so wonderfully that he can be present everywhere and still remain in his eternal abode, Goloka Vrindavan. Right, so on we go now, devotees, to verse 5. The demon continued, when you fall dead with your skull smashed by the mace hurled by my arms, the demigods and sages who offer you oblations and sacrifice in devotional service will also automatically cease to exist, like trees without roots. So there's a purport here, fairly substantial. First point Prabhupada makes is, when the demons worship the Lord in the prescribed ways, when the devotees worship the Lord in the prescribed ways, the demons become very disturbed by this. And Shastra advises the neophyte devotees to engage in 9 devotional processes, beginning with hearing and chanting, and that they should chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and worship the Lord in his deity form. So the devotees are advised like this, and to engage in various activities in Krishna consciousness, preach to increase the number of devotees, to make the world peaceful. But the demons don't like this because they're always envious of the Lord and the devotees. And they make propaganda. There's no need to worship the Lord in the temple. Just make material advancement for sense gratification. They always do this. Yes. So anyway, Hiranyaksha wanted to make a permanent solution by killing the Lord with his club. And Prabhupada says the example of an uprooted tree mentioned by Hiranyaksha is significant because the devotees accept the Lord as the root of all, like the stomach is the source of energy of all the limbs. So the Lord is the source of all energy. So, as supplying food to the stomach is the way to satisfy all parts of the body, Krishna consciousness is the way to satisfy the source of all happiness. And then everyone becomes happy. So this demon, Hiranyaksha, wants to uproot the source, because if the root, the Supreme Lord, was to be stopped, the activities of the Lord, the activities of the devotees, would automatically stop. And this would please the demons. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, according to Sridhar Swami, this verse means that when the demon would be deprived of his mace by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not only the neophyte devotees, but also the ancient, sagacious devotees of the Lord would be very much satisfied. Verse 6, although the Lord was pained by the shaft-like abusive words of the demon, he bore the pain, but seeing the earth on the ends of his tusks was frightened. He rose out of the water just as an elephant emerges with its female companion when assailed by an alligator. So Prabhupada comments that the Mayavadis cannot understand that the Lord has feelings. He's satisfied if someone offers prayers, dissatisfied if someone criticizes him, calls him bad names, says he doesn't exist. Yes. So therefore the Lord is decried by the Mayavadis. And these Mayavadis are almost demons. They say he has no form, no hands, no limbs. In other words, he's dead, he's lame, he has no head, means he's got no brain, he's stupid. So the Lord becomes dissatisfied with this. So here, even though he felt dissatisfied by the words of the demon, he delivered the earth to satisfy the demigods because they're his devotees. So the conclusion is the Lord is as sentient as we are. He's satisfied by our prayers and dissatisfied with our harsh words against him. So we shouldn't criticize the Lord if something goes wrong, apparently. We shouldn't blame him. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, in order to give protection to his devotee, he's always ready to tolerate insulting words from the atheists. Right, on to verse 7. The demon who had golden hair on his head and fearful tusks gave chase to the Lord while he was rising from the water, even as an alligator would chase an elephant. Roaring like thunder, he said, "Are you not ashamed of running away before a challenging adversary? There is nothing reproachable for shameless creatures. So there's a short purport here. So, the demons deriding him, insulting the Lord, but the Lord didn't care because he knew it was his duty to save the earth. And Prabhupada says, for a dutiful man, there's nothing to fear. So actually the Lord had nothing to fear from anyone, but he was merciful to the enemy by neglecting him. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, although apparently he fled from the challenge, it was just to protect the earth from calamity that he tolerated Hiranyaksha's deriding words. Otherwise, what is Lord Varaha going to do with the earth? Just let it fall back into the Garbhatak ocean? No, he's got to look after it. Verse 8, the Lord placed the earth within his sight on the surface of the water, and transferred to her his own energy in the form of the ability to float on the water. While the enemy stood looking on, Brahma, the creator of the universe, extolled the Lord, and the other demigods rained flowers on him. So, of course, the demons can't understand, how did the Lord get the earth to float on the water? It had sunk under the water. But for the devotees, they understand that for the Lord it's nothing special. And it's not just the earth which the Lord is getting to float, but all the millions of planets that are floating in space. It's all part of the floating potency of the Lord. There's no other possible explanation. The materialists talk of the law of gravity, but this law is working under the control of the Lord, as any law is. It's working under the control of the law maker. So that's the version of Bhagavad Gita. Behind all natural laws, the development of all planetary systems, is the Lord's direction. So, the Lord's activities here are only appreciated by the demigods, so they showered flowers. So, okay, now we go on to the second section, verse 9 to verse 12. Lord Varaha responds to Hiranyaksha. And we'll just read straight through it. It's only 3 or 4 verses. We'll just read straight through it. Verse 9. The demon, who had a wealth of ornaments, bangles, and beautiful golden armor on his body, chased the Lord from behind with a great mace. The Lord tolerated his piercing ill words, but in order to reply to him, he expressed his terrible anger. So Prabhupada makes the point that the Lord could have chastised him immediately, but he tolerated him initially to please the demigods, and to show that they, the demigods, should not be afraid while doing their duties. So therefore his tolerance was displayed mainly to drive away the fears of the demigods, because they should know that he's always there to protect them. So therefore the demons' derision of the Lord was just like the barking of dogs. The Lord didn't care for it, as he was doing his own work of delivering the earth. So Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, materialistic demons always possess large amounts of gold in various shapes, and they think that a large amount of gold, physical strength and popularity can save them from the wrath of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Verse 10, the personality of Godhead said, "Indeed, we are creatures of the jungle, and we are searching after hunting dogs like you. One who is freed from the entanglement of death has no fear from the loose talk in which you're indulging, for you are bound up by the laws of death." Wow, he's really chastising Hiranyaksha. So Prabhupada explains that the demons, the atheists, they can continue insulting the Lord, but they forget they're subject to the laws of birth and death. They think that simply by criticizing the Lord, decrying his existence or defying his laws, one can be freed from birth and death. Bhagavad Gita chapter 4 verse 9 says, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the Lord, one can go back to Godhead. But Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, but demons and atheistic persons do not try to understand the nature of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they remain in the entanglement of birth and death. So Lord Varaha continues chastising Hiranyaksha. Certainly we have stolen the charge of the inhabitants of Rasatala and have lost all shame. Although bitten by your powerful mace, I shall stay here in the water for some time, because having created enmity with a powerful enemy, I now have no place to go. So there's a very short purport here. Let me just read it. The demon should have known that God cannot be driven out of any place, for he's all-pervading. Demons think of their possessions as their property, but actually everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can take anything at any time he likes. So verse 12, you are supposed to be the commander of many foot soldiers, and now you may take prompt steps to overthrow us. Give up all your foolish talk and wipe out the cares of your kith and kin by slaying us. One may be proud, yet he does not deserve a seat in an assembly if he fails to fulfill his promised word. So Lord Varaha's insulting him. Gosh, very powerfully. So very short purport again. Let me just read it. A demon may be a great soldier and commander of a large number of infantry, but in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's powerless and is destined to die. The Lord therefore challenged the demon not to go away, but to fulfill his promised word to kill him. Otherwise, he's going to be very embarrassed. He's going to be really embarrassed. So right, on to the next section, section 3, verse 13 to verse 19, the fight between Varaha and Hiranyaksha. Right, verse 13 to verse 19. Let's have a look here. I'll just read through the whole thing because there's not so many purports. Sri Maitreya said, the demon, being thus challenged by the personality of Godhead, became angry and agitated and trembled in anger like a challenged cobra. So Prabhupada makes the point in the purport, cobras are very fierce, but in front of a snake charmer, the cobra becomes a plaything. Similarly, a demon may be very powerful in his own space, but in front of the Lord he's insignificant. And the example is given of Ravana, was a very fierce figure before the demigods, but before Ram he trembled and prayed to Lord Shiva, although it didn't help him at all. Verse 14, hissing indignantly, all his senses shaken by wrath, the demon quickly sprang upon the Lord and dealt him a blow with his powerful mace. So there's no purport to that verse. Let us carry on to verse 15. The Lord, however, by moving slightly aside, dodged the violent mace blow aimed at his breast by the enemy, just as an accomplished yogi would elude death. Yes, so there's a purport here. Prabhupada says that the perfect yogi can dodge a death blow from material nature. And it's useless for a demon to hit the body of the Lord with a club, because no one can surpass the Lord. And then back to the advanced yogis, the advanced transcendentalists are free from the laws of nature, so a death blow cannot act on them. Superficially, it may seem that a yogi is attacked by a death blow, but by the Lord's grace he can overcome it for the service of the Lord. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, as the Lord exists by his own independent prowess, by the grace of the Lord, the devotees also exist for his service. So, okay, on we go. Verse 16. The personality of Godhead now exhibited his anger and rushed to meet the demon, who bit his lip in rage, took up his mace again, and began to repeatedly brandish it about, he's waving his club around. There's no purport here. Verse 17. Then with his mace, the Lord struck the enemy on the right of his brow. But since the demon was expert in fighting, O gentle Vidura, he protected himself by a maneuver of his own mace. There's no purport here. Verse 18. In this way, the demon Haryaksha and the Lord, the personality of Godhead, struck each other with their huge maces, each enraged and seeking his own victory. And Prabhupada just makes a little comment here that Haryaksha, that's what the demon is referred to here in this verse, not as Hiranyaksha, but Prabhupada says Haryaksha is another name for Hiranyaksha, the demon. Verse 19. There was keen rivalry between the two combatants. Both had sustained injuries on their bodies from the blows of each other's pointed maces, and each grew more and more enraged at the smell of blood on his person. In their eagerness to win, they performed maneuvers of various kinds, and their contest looked like an encounter between two forceful bulls for the sake of a cow. Srila Prabhupada makes the point that here the earth is named Ila. Formerly it was called Ilavrita Varsha, but when Maharaj Parikshit was ruling, it was known as Bharat Varsha. And actually Bharat Varsha is the name for the whole planet. But gradually it has come to mean just India. Yeah. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, as India has recently been divided into Pakistan and Hindustan, similarly the earth was formerly called Ilavrita Varsha, but gradually as time passed, it was divided by national boundaries. Okay. So now on to the last section, verse 20 to verse 28. And it's called Brahma appeals to Lord Varaha to kill Hiranyaksha quickly. Right, okay. So we'll just read straight through it. I mean, there are a few purports, but most of the verses don't have purports. So verse 20, O descendant of Kuru, Brahma, the most independent demigod of the universe, accompanied by his followers, came to see the terrible fight for the sake of the world between the demon and the personality of Godhead, who appeared in the form of a boar. So there's a purport here, fairly substantial. Prabhupada begins by saying that this fight between the Lord and the demon was like a fight between two bulls for a cow. He also said that. We just read a few minutes ago, the earth is the cow. Yeah. So Prabhupada says, the demons and the Lord, or the representatives of the Lord, they fight for supremacy over the earth. Prabhupada says, there's always a constant fight. Always a constant fight for supremacy over the earth. So here the Lord is called Yajna Vaibhava, he whose body is partially Yajna. Yajna Vaibhava. Yeah, okay. He whose body is partially Yajna, that's there in the verse itself. So we shouldn't think, of course we shouldn't think, we know it very well, but Prabhupada repeats again for our benefit. Don't think the Lord has the body of an ordinary boar. He can assume any form, and those forms are transcendental and they're eternal. And his body is actually full of yajna, or worshipful offerings. Yes. Yajna, sacrifices are offered to Vishnu, and yajna means the body of Vishnu. So here, second paragraph, here Brahma is described as Swarat, independent. So, but the thing is, he's not completely independent. Prabhupada explains, full independence is only there with the Lord. But as part and parcels of the Lord, every living entity has a minute quantity of independence. But having said that, Brahma, as the chief of all the living entities, has more independence than others. Yes, he's the representative of the Lord. He's been assigned to preside over the universal affairs. All of the other demigods work for him. So like this, he's described as Swarat, independent, or at least there's a certain, quite a bit of independence. Definitely not complete, but quite a bit. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, he's always accompanied by great sages and transcendentalists. all of whom came to see the bullfight between the demon and the Lord. They all came to see the bullfight. Okay, so on to verse 21. On to verse 21. After arriving at the place of combat, Brahma, the leader of thousands of sages and transcendentalists, saw the demon who had attained such unprecedented power that no one could fight with him. Brahma then addressed Narayan, who was assuming the form of a boar for the first time. So there's no purport here. Let us go on to verses 22 and 23. They're together. So Lord Brahma said, "My dear Lord, this demon has proved to be a constant pinprick to the demigods, the Brahmins, the cows, and innocent persons who are spotless and always dependent upon worshipping your lotus feet. He has become a source of fear by unnecessarily harassing them. Since he has attained a boon from me, he has become a demon, always searching for a proper combatant, wandering all over the universe for his infamous purpose." Okay, so Prabhupada again, as he did just, I think yesterday we read, first of all he makes the point there are two classes of living entities. The demigods, they're called suras, and then the demons who are asuras. And the demons, they're generally fond of worshipping the demigods. And because they do that, they get some power for sense gratification. And in this way, they cause trouble for the Brahmins, the innocent, the demigods themselves, later on. Yeah. So their process, you could say, the way of the demon, is to take power from the demigod and then tease the demigod with that power. And Srila Prabhupada gives the example. He says there's an instance of a great devotee of Lord Shiva who obtained a boon from Lord Shiva that the head of whomever he touched with his hand would come off at its trunk. This actually is Vrikasura, who is described, where is it? I think it's 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada mentions, and the story goes, that then he decided, well, I would like to enjoy Parvati, so let me use this benediction on Shiva himself, who of course is the husband of Parvati. So he was chasing Lord Shiva to touch his head, and in this way kill him and get to grab Parvati, I suppose. I don't think she'd be very keen on becoming involved with him at all. So, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead intervened and told the stupid Vrikasura, I mean, he was really stupid actually, that listen, look at this Lord Shiva. He associates with ghosts and hobgoblins. His body's covered in the ashes of cremated bodies. How can you take him seriously? What you must do is, just to prove that his blessing is nonsense, it doesn't work, touch your own head, and then you'll see your head will not break off. So then you know he's a rascal. Then you just chase him and kill him. So the foolish Vrikasura, he touched his own head. Should I do it? Ah, yes. And his head fell off. That was the end of Vrikasura. And Lord Shiva came and thanked the Lord, and the Supreme Lord told him, don't offer benedictions like that again. So anyway, that was all. He got that benediction. It was all for his sense gratification. But the devotees don't ask any favor for sense gratification. Even if they're offered liberation, they refuse it. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, they're happy simply engaging in the transcendental, loving service of the Lord. So right, on we go to verse 24. On we go to verse 24. Lord Brahma continued, my Lord, there's no need to play with the serpentine demon, who's always very skilled in conjuring tricks, and is arrogant, self-sufficient, and most wicked. So there's Lord Brahma is telling the Supreme Lord, telling Lord Varaha, just kill him. Just don't play around, and don't get entangled with him in sort of playing games with him where he may try and show off his mystical powers and all that. Just kill him. Get rid of him now. So Prabhupada says that Hiranyaksha is being compared to a snake, and no one is unhappy when a snake is killed. You may know that story. It was at the Chaitanya Mat. Srila Prabhupada was there, and he was just moving around outside in the grounds, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in his house, which is sort of down near the entrance at the end closest to our temple. Yeah, just like 150 meters up from that lower entrance. That was the house of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He was upstairs there on the veranda, and he saw a snake, and he called out, kill it, kill it. So someone came and killed the snake, and Prabhupada was a little taken aback, and he thought that a sadhu wants to have some creature killed. But then Prabhupada read that actually a sadhu is happy when a snake is killed, because snakes are just too envious, just completely overwhelmed with envy. So therefore, Hiranyaksha, who's like a snake, should just be killed. Don't play around. Don't delay. Just kill him. Right, so Prabhupada in the purport explains that children sometimes catch a snake by the tail, play with it for a while, and then kill it. Similarly, the Lord could have killed the demon immediately on the spot, but he played with him like a child playing with a snake. So Brahma, though, requested that this demon is more wicked than a snake, so there's no need to play with him. So obviously Brahma wants him killed now, without any delay. Okay, so let's move on. Next is verse 25, and it's interesting. There are no more purports in this chapter. Anyway, let's just read through. Maybe we'll make a little comment somewhere, or not. Let's see. Verse 25, Brahma continued, my dear Lord, you are infallible, please kill this sinful demon before the demoniac hour arrives. And he presents another formidable approach favorable to him. You can kill him by your internal potency without doubt. So, yes, so the point is that, the evening time is considered demoniac. This reminds us of the whole situation with Diti and Kasyapa. I'm sure you remember about that. Diti wanted that with a husband they would conceive a child right at that time. It was the evening, very inauspicious time. And she was insisting, because at that time, but at that time, the demons become more powerful. Lord Shiva flies in the sky with a whole lot of demons. Yes. So therefore, other demons who are around, they become empowered by the presence of the other demons, the associates of Lord Shiva, who are flying around in the sky in the evening, the demoniac hour. Verse 26, my Lord, the darkest evening which covers the world is fast approaching. Since you are the soul of all souls, kindly kill him and win victory for the demigods. 27, the auspicious period known as Abhijit, which is most opportune, commenced at midday and has all but passed. Therefore, in the interest of your friends, please dispose of this formidable foe quickly. Brahma, well, anyway, the auspicious time from midday till late afternoon is practically finished. So please dispose of him quickly. Formidable foe. It would appear that Brahma may not be so confident that the Lord is going to be able to do this. Anyway, sometimes that happens to the demigods. They lose their confidence in the Lord. So 28, this demon, luckily for us, has come of his own accord to you, his death ordained by you. Therefore, exhibiting your ways, kill him in the duel and establish the worlds in peace. So there you go, devotees. That was chapter 18. And we have finished chapter 18 now in one sitting. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.